Okay, so yesterday we went over a situation that had happened with Sony when it came to their Blu-ray rewritable discs and how they were discontinuing those, and they didn't really have any plans for a successor. So really just in terms of Blu-ray storage medium, there's not a lot of push, I guess, within Sony to go to the next thing, which of course brings up the question around the physical game market. Well, now I think we have some data we can take a look at here that really shows what a lot of people have been feeling, which is a pretty significant decline in terms of physical game sales. While we see it seemingly year over year, it is interesting to kind of see it laid out going all the way back into the 2000 and really just how far the whole thing has dropped. But maybe there's a bit of a silver lining here, as we could see somewhat of a turnaround here in the next year or two. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. Now, this was shared by Matt Piscatella. And again, I wanted to follow up yesterday's video about that article that kind of blew things out of proportion with actual data as to maybe why people are kind of on edge with their physical media and if it will be around, say, in 5 years even. But this is a chart that was shared. Now, this tracks U.S. physical video game software consumer spending by year. Again, Matt Piscatella posted this up over on his Blue Sky account. And we can see it starts in 2000, ends in 2024. And you can see a sharp increase around that 2007 to 2009 time period, with 2008 being just a massive year in terms of physical video game software, which then you fast forward all the way to 2024, and that technically dropped roughly 85% from the high. But it gets even a little crazier when you go even to 2020. Technically, from 2020 to 2024, there was about a 50% drop in physical video game software consumer spending, which is also mind-blowing. But consider the fact that around that time, people were kind of stuck inside and they were trying to figure out ways to entertain themselves. And I'm sure there are many that before then had gone out to the store to buy their games and realized, oh, wow, it's very convenient to sit inside and buy the games digitally. And that's, to me, is the biggest thing that wins out for most mainstream consumers, or just most in general. Convenience, I still think, is one of the biggest deciding factors when it comes to purchases and really how you purchase and at times what you purchase. Great example, the Switch. There's a lot of convenience there with that hybrid setup, dock or handheld, and kind of done on the fly. So it can sort of blend in a bit better. It's more malleable to your personal day-to-day lives and how you want to play a game. So you might be looking at this saying, well, maybe just in general, there's less spend, say, over the last 4 or 5 years even. Well, to follow this chart up, Matt did post up this, which is total video game spending by year. So 2019 then to 2024, which again, I will say the pandemic, everything happened there, definitely had a bit of a sales surge when it comes to just games in general and how many were being sold. And I think there are a lot of inflated stats still now that many projections have been made on to greenlight certain projects. All right. So again, that's something that the industry is going to be dealing with still probably over the next several years. But the point of this is, despite decline here, quite substantially again from even 2019 to 2024, it appears that just the overall spend in terms of gaming has not dropped. Even video game content, you can see, is pretty straightforward, pretty much flattened. But that includes physical and digital, which then would tell us, yeah, more people are indeed spending money on the digital side versus the physical side. And I think there's a lot that plays into this. One, you could look at just because this does include microtransactions, subscription services. These are things that have really been pushed more and more over the last 7 years, 8 years even. I mean, a big push, obviously, with things like Game Pass, but also these quote-unquote black hole free-to-play games like a Fortnite, like an Apex Legends, like an Overwatch, and so on. And a lot of their push is there is no price up front that you would normally buy, go out to the store and pick up a copy. A lot of that is recouped and really just completely made over the top, even microtransactions and season passes, and even at times subscription services to it. This also includes cloud, mobile, which, I mean, you don't buy physical games for your mobile device. VR, same thing there. And of course, PC, which is all digital at this point. So you can kind of see how that has shifted consumer spending. But I also want to take you back to a time, because we looked at this and said, wow, 2008 was insane. I mean, think of it. This is almost, as they have it marked out here, almost $12 billion in terms of physical video game software spend, whereas now we're less than $2 billion. It's incredible. What was happening in 2008? Well, if you're old enough to remember, you kind of already know what I'm about to say, because it was a different time period. And technically, we're going back almost more than 16 years then to get here. But I like to go through and look at my my circulars and ads and stuff. In this case, this is GameStop, and this is provided by Black Friday Archive, where you can actually look at a bunch of the different archived ads going all the way back to like 2000. But this does show us an idea as to what was going on at this time period, which was Xbox 360, Wii, DS, PS3, PSP, all happening at once, all kind of hitting. Well, the PS3 was lagging behind a bit. Everything was kind of hitting its peak around this point, and you weren't going online to buy digital games. We did not get to that point with the 360 or the PS3 yet. That happened around 2010 or so. And here they had Guitar Hero, which was hitting, the Xbox 360, and you just had software all over the place that you're going out to the store to pick up, which the Wii and the DS, this was a year that we're never going to see again in gaming. I'd be shocked if we do. So here's the Wii, of course, the Wii Fit Balance Board. All right, so keep that in mind. The mainstream push was on. We have the DS, which was going ballistic right now. Software all over the place for it as well. Different colored systems. I'm sure people are trading in and buying new ones just because of the Mario theme here, or maybe this nice ice blue DS. But at this point, Nintendo, in 2008, their fiscal year is kind of off. As we mentioned, it's sort of offset. It's like March to March, or March to end of March. Yeah. So in this case, around that time period, in 2008 into 2009, they sold about 55 million systems between the DS and the Wii. They were both like really hitting their peak right around this time, and combined for that many units along with software, and it was going crazy. I mean, again, I don't think we're ever going to see that again, because none of these companies have multiple systems like that. Nintendo really figured it out all at once here, and I don't think they'll ever return it. Really, do you think the Switch 2 is going to sell 250 million systems? Because that's about what Nintendo sold between the DS and the Wii in its entire lifetime, as they were selling side by side. I just don't really see that happening, so again, it was a different time. And then you also did have the PSP, which people look at that as a system that struggled for Sony. And look, the piracy stuff didn't help. It got hacked, and people were just loading games onto it. But they sold more than 80 million PSPs, and that was kind of rolling along here as they had bundles and stuff that range at $200. You also had the PS2 still on the market at $130. Guitar Hero was killing it. And the PS3, like I said, not quite hitting its stride, but you did have things like Metal Gear Solid 4. You had the wireless Guitar Hero in general was there. I think Rock Band was starting to be talked about and discussed and show up. So it was going crazy in terms of software, but oh, look at the PS3 though, still $400 to 80 gig. They're working it. They're working to figure this one out still. It was around the time the slim PS3 came out and they got that down to $299.9 that it really took off. But this was 2008. It was legitimately unstoppable in retail stores, and it shows it here on the chart. And it's kind of funny to think about this, because I was really involved with like the retail side of things in stores, multiple stores going between them and stuff, starting around this time period, like 2010, and was there all the way until like 2017. I witnessed this decline. You could kind of tell as you went through into the new systems coming out with the PS4 and the Xbox One. The Wii U just didn't really do much, so it was kind of like, all right, fine. Like, you could technically buy digital game, but most people just bought physically on Nintendo, even on like the 3DS. It was mostly Pokemon Day. Everyone's coming in and getting their cartridges. Make sure you have a ton of pre-orders. But you sort of felt it with the PS4 and the Xbox One, and it became much more prevalent as we got into, of course, the PS5 and the Xbox Series. And it's one of the reasons I don't think Microsoft is going to have physical games for their next generation, I'm going to say, plans. I don't think it fits in. Mostly since it appears that their structure is going to be, we're going to license or just have an OS that other companies can use, while we still make a box that sort of introduces and shows off all the features that they can also utilize with this OS and the setup. So if I'm ASUS, if I'm MSI or Lenovo, whoever, I don't really know why I would add extra cost to my system to have a Blu-ray drive when I'm not going to make any money from the software sales. I would try to keep costs down any way I can, and that would be one of them, because they're also probably in this PC mindset of how they're creating their systems. And they also see that Microsoft has digital-only devices on the market. So I don't think that's something that will translate over to the next generation plans. And it wouldn't shock me if Microsoft just didn't even have a disk drive for whatever their Xbox Series X and S successor is. I've kind of pulled back a bit on the idea of Sony completely getting out of it, mostly because theirs is detachable right now, so they can keep selling that and just make it so the default PS6 does accept that disk drive on the side. But I don't think they're going to have one that just like has that immediately out of the box. I think it's going to be default digital, and then you have to sort of go out of your way to add a disk drive. However, this is where things can turn around. All right. So the Switch 2 is coming up. It has a cartridge slot. I kind of could see, since a lot of this is based around yearly spending, I could see that actually having an effect to where it shifts the market at least slightly in favor of physical media, because Nintendo still does control what appears to be like half and half. It's not completely moved over to where it's majority digital, but it's close for Nintendo right now. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I think right now, when it comes to the way that we see the physical spend, it's going to pale in comparison to a lot of these free-to-play games that are completely eating up the market. And it's one of the reasons they're called black hole games, is because it's just, they pull a lot of money in. And right now, the competition is becoming less and less about just game sales. It's becoming more and more about like screen time, as being described. And these free-to-play games completely control that. So the $60, $70 that might go into the next big game that Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo release, I mean, some of the younger generation now might spend on skins or battle passes, and that sounds kind of sad, but that's sort of the market now. It changes and shifts constantly as new generations enter, and it seems like that's something that we're going to see play out here over the next 5 or 6 years until the next generation comes up, and we'll see what they're interested in. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below with the decline of physical media on display here. Is there a chance that maybe the Switch 2 could have an effect and start to slowly turn things around even just a little bit? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.